Officer Blake Simmons sees a calm black woman in military gear and assumes she's just another problem to control, another threat to remind who's in charge. But what he doesn't know? That woman is Captain Danica Morgan, a decorated Navy SEAL and the keynote speaker at tomorrow's Police Military Summit on Bias. Stick around, because when the footage drops and #BadgeBully trends worldwide, Blake's badge won't protect him. It'll expose him. Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just stands tall and lets the truth do the talking. We read every single comment, so tell us where you're watching from and what time you found this. And don't forget to subscribe. Officer Blake Simmons adjusts his badge, studying his reflection in the convenience store's window. Every crease in his uniform speaks of authority, of belonging. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across his face as he watches the woman in military gear, her mere presence an affront to his carefully constructed world. Her shoulders are too square, her stance too assured. Everything he's fought to become while suppressing his own Dominican Haitian heritage. What he didn't know was, she was more than just a soldier. She was the storm coming for his facade. "Ma'am, step away from the counter." His voice carries the practiced authority of years spent erasing his accent, each syllable as crisp as his pressed uniform. The woman turns, and the Navy SEAL insignia on her chest catches the light. Something inside Officer Blake Simmons snaps, a dam of insecurity breaking loose. How dare she wear that symbol of elite status so casually? The sound of his boots against the linoleum echoes like thunder as he closes the distance. "I said step away!" His hand finds his handcuffs, the metal cold and reassuring. Behind him, phones rise like witnesses, their cameras capturing every moment of what happens next. The woman, Danica Morgan, as her military ID will later reveal, maintains eye contact, unflinching. "Sir, I'm just buying coffee." Her calm voice carries the weight of battlefield experience, and it makes Officer Blake Simmons's blood boil. In one fluid motion, he grabs her arm, spinning her against the wall. The handcuffs click with satisfying finality. "You think that uniform makes you special?" he hisses, pressing harder than necessary. His heart pounds with a mixture of power and something else. Something that feels uncomfortably like fear. The store's security camera whirs above, its red light blinking like a judgmental eye. A young customer's voice cuts through the tension. "That's Captain Morgan, sir. She just returned from leading a classified operation in—" Officer Blake Simmons silences him with a glare, but the seed of doubt is planted. "Captain?" His grip on the handcuffs tightens. The convenience store's automatic doors whoosh open, admitting Lieutenant Colonel Harrison. "Simmons, release Captain Morgan immediately." The command freezes Officer Blake Simmons in place. His carefully constructed facade cracks as he realizes his mistake, but pride forces him to maintain his grip. "Sir, she was being uncooperative." The words sound hollow even to his own ears. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison's face darkens with each syllable. "Funny," the colonel says coldly, "for someone who's done more for this country than you ever will. That woman you're manhandling is the keynote speaker at tomorrow's Police Military Coalition conference on implicit bias." The irony hits like a physical blow. Officer Blake Simmons' world tilts as phones continue recording, their artificial eyes capturing his downfall. Will Officer Blake Simmons' authority survive this devastating challenge? Type "Power falls" if you've ever witnessed authority crumble. Later, alone in his patrol car, Officer Blake Simmons polishes his badge obsessively, remembering his father's words. Make them see you as one of them, hijo. It's the only way to survive. But as #CopWatch explodes across social media, featuring his confrontation with Captain Morgan, he questions everything. His badge catches the streetlight, reflecting a distorted version of his face. What happens, he whispers to his reflection, when the mask you've worn becomes a prison? The viral video reaches 100,000 views within the hour. Officer Blake Simmons watches the counterclimb, each new view hammering home the reality of his situation. His phone buzzes with a notification. The department's Internal Affairs Division requests his presence. Tomorrow morning. First thing, his hands shake as he adjusts his rearview mirror, catching sight of his face. No longer the image of unquestionable authority he'd carefully cultivated. In the distance, he sees Captain Morgan speaking with Lieutenant Colonel Harrison, her bearing unchanged despite the handcuff marks on her wrists. The sight fills him with a dread he can't quite name. Officer Blake Simmons stares at his reflection in the locker room mirror, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across his face. The viral video plays again on Tucker's phone, each frame a stark reminder of his confrontation with Danica Morgan. His throat tightens as he watches himself, aggressive and imposing, becoming everything he once promised he'd never be. Good work showing her who's boss, Tucker's voice echoes through the locker room, each word like acid on Officer Blake Simmons' skin. His fingers trace the edge of his badge, its surface cool and accusing under his touch. This shield, this symbol of authority, had been his armor for 15 years, his way of proving he belonged. The precinct bustles outside, but inside this metal sanctuary, Officer Blake Simmons' world begins to crack. His hand trembles as he reaches for his wallet, extracting the worn photograph he's carried for 20 years. His mother's dark eyes stare back at him, a silent witness to his betrayal. The son of a black woman, now wearing the same uniform that had terrorized their neighborhood during his childhood. Did you see how many views it's getting? Tucker continues, oblivious to Officer Blake Simmons' internal storm. Already hit 1 million. #BadgeBully is trending. The hashtag feels like a branding iron, searing through the carefully constructed facade Officer Blake Simmons has maintained since academy days. Memories flood back. The countless times he'd watched his mother being stopped, questioned, humiliated by officers. How he'd sworn to change things from the inside. Instead, here he was, perpetuating the very system he'd once despised. His hands shake as he pulls up the department's internal database, typing in his own badge number. The screen fills with incident reports, 12 complaints of excessive force in the past year alone. Each one dismissed, each one buried under the weight of brotherhood and bureaucracy. Officer Blake Simmons had known about them, of course, but seeing them now, through the lens of that viral video, they form a pattern he can no longer ignore. Have you ever felt your entire identity slip through your fingers? He whispers to his mother's photograph. When did I become the monster in our old stories? A research paper catches his eye on his desk. Institutional Racism in Law Enforcement, the Cycle of Systemic Oppression. He'd dismissed it last week as liberal propaganda. Now, each paragraph reads like a personal indictment, describing how officers of color often overcompensate, becoming harder on minorities to prove their loyalty to the system. Officer Blake Simmons' phone buzzes. A text from his sergeant. My office. Now. His heart pounds as he walks through the precinct, feeling eyes following him. The viral video plays on someone's computer, his own voice harsh and threatening. Each step feels like walking through quicksand. Drop 1 in the comments if you've ever betrayed your own values to fit in. The sergeant's office door closes with a final click. "We've got a situation, Blake," she says, sliding a folder across the desk. Inside, more complaints surface, dating back to his rookie year. Each one a brick in the wall he'd built between himself and his heritage. "The FBI's Civil Rights Division is looking into our department," she continues. "Your name keeps coming up." Officer Blake Simmons clutches his badge, the metal warm from his grip. In its reflection, he sees his mother's eyes, hears her voice from long ago. "Never forget who you are, baby." But he had forgotten, hadn't he? Buried it under layers of blue uniform and false belonging. The precinct walls seem to pulse with decades of systemic racism, each beat a reminder of his complicity. The viral video continues its spread, #BadgeBully gaining momentum with every passing hour. Officer Blake Simmons' carefully constructed world begins to crumble, brick by brick. Revelation by revelation. As he leaves the sergeant's office, his badge feels heavier than ever. In the hallway mirror, Officer Blake Simmons catches his reflection. Not quite the monster from the viral video, not quite the son his mother raised. Somewhere in between, lost in a system he'd thought he could change, but that had changed him instead. "Have you ever realized you've become everything you once fought against?" he whispers to his reflection, the fluorescent lights casting shadows that look suspiciously like tears on his cheeks. Officer Blake Simmons stares at his reflection in the precinct bathroom mirror, his complexion ashen despite his desperate attempts to maintain composure. The protest chants from outside penetrate the walls. "No more lies! No more hate!" Each word hammering against his skull like an accusation. His trembling hands clutch the edges of the sink, knuckles white with strain. The mobile phone in his pocket buzzes again. Another death threat against Morgan. The 20th today. Blake's stomach churns as he remembers his grandmother's voice, now a constant whisper in his mind. "Never forget who you are, mijo." The Spanish endearment feels like acid on his conscience. Tucker's edited footage plays on loop on the break room TV. "Hero cop stands ground against aggressive veteran," the caption reads. Blake watches himself in the convenience store footage, sees the way he squares his shoulders, the artificial confidence in his stance. But now he notices something he missed before, the slight tremor in his own hand as he reached for his weapon, the flash of recognition in Morgan's eyes when she heard his accent slip. His badge weighs heavy on his chest, no longer a symbol of authority, but a burning brand of shame. Each time he touches it, his fingers recoil as if scorched. The metal seems to grow hotter with each passing hour, each new revelation, each memory of his grandmother's disappointed face. "Sir, you need to see this." Officer Chen appears in the doorway, tablet in hand. Blake's heart rate spikes as he sees the trending hashtag #Simmons shameful. Someone has unearthed his high school yearbook photos, his grandmother's naturalization papers, the truth about his heritage carefully buried beneath years of calculated identity construction. The precinct walls seem to close in. Through the windows, he catches glimpses of protest signs bearing his name. The chants grow louder, more focused. "Simmons, remember who you are!" His phone buzzes again. Internal Affairs wants a meeting. Tomorrow. The text message blurs as his hands shake. In the background, Tucker's voice drones on about our brave officers. But all Blake can hear is his grandmother's lullabies, sung in Spanish on nights when he was too afraid to sleep. 2 other officers pass by, averting their eyes. Yesterday's allies, today's silent judges. The thin blue line he once thought unbreakable now seems to be drawing itself away from him, leaving him exposed and alone. The protest chants outside swell to a crescendo. Blake reaches for his badge again, fingers hovering over the metal that once meant everything to him. In its reflection, he sees not the stern officer from Tucker's footage, but the frightened boy who once begged his grandmother to teach him English, to help him sound more American. Have you ever buried your truth so deep you forgot it was there? The thought echoes in his mind as he watches another news alert pop up on his phone. More footage has surfaced, more questions about his past, more proof that his carefully constructed facade is crumbling. The day shifts into evening, but the protesters don't leave. Their shadows stretch across the precinct walls like accusatory fingers. Blake sits alone in his patrol car, engine off, watching as his world unravels thread by thread. In 6 hours, everything he built has begun to collapse. In another 12, nothing will remain but the truth he tried so hard to escape. His grandmother's voice whispers again, "Never forget who you are, mijo." But he did forget. And now, as the consequences of his actions cascade around him, remembering might be the very thing that destroys him. Type truth in the comments if you've ever watched someone's carefully built lies collapse around them. Officer Blake Simmons stares at his reflection in the precinct's bathroom mirror, his trembling hands gripping the porcelain sink. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across his face, now drawn and haunted after 18 sleepless hours. His phone buzzes incessantly, another notification about Simmons falls trending nationwide. The badge on his chest, once a shield of pride, now weighs like an anchor of shame. Through the thin walls, he hears Officer Calder's voice announcing the release of the complete footage. Simmons's stomach lurches. Every cruel word he spat at Danica Morgan, every fabricated detail in his report, every moment of his carefully constructed facade, all exposed in pristine high definition. His mother's voice, long suppressed, whispers in his mind, "La verdad siempre sale." The truth always comes out. Heavy footsteps echo down the corridor. The chief's voice booms, "Simmons, my office, now!" Each step toward the office feels like walking through quicksand. Officers who once laughed at his jokes now avert their eyes. His former partner, Rodriguez, watches with unveiled disgust. He'd recognized the Spanish curses Simmons had muttered that day, realizing his colleague had buried his own Hispanic heritage while targeting others. The security footage plays on the chief's monitor. Simmons watches himself transform from confident aggressor to exposed fraud in crystal-clear resolution. His confrontation with Danica Morgan plays out in excruciating detail, her calm demeanor highlighting his increasing hysteria, her military bearing making his power play look pathetic. "I trusted you, Simmons," the chief's words cut like steel. "Explain this." Officer Blake Simmons's fingers trace the edge of his badge, remembering how desperately he'd polished it that morning at the convenience store, how it had represented everything he'd sacrificed his identity to become. With trembling hands, he unfastens it from his uniform. The badge clatters against the chief's desk, the sound shocking in its finality. "I was wrong," Simmons croaks, his carefully cultivated accent slipping. "About everything." His confession pours out in a torrent, about suppressing his heritage, about enforcing the very prejudices he'd once faced, about the systematic profiling he'd championed to prove his loyalty. Outside the office windows, Phones flash as reporters gather. Simmons Falls has evolved into a truth reveal, with millions sharing the footage. CNN picks up the story. Officer exposed. The face of systemic racism reveals own hidden truth. Danica Morgan stands at the precinct entrance, surrounded by supporters. Her voice carries through the building. Change starts with accountability. The words echo through the corridors, through Simmons's conscience, through the very foundations of the system he'd helped perpetuate. Type, truth rises if you believe every lie eventually surfaces. Officer Blake Simmons exits the precinct, no longer in uniform, passing beneath the justice motto he'd ignored for years. His mother's words follow him. La verdad siempre sale. The truth always comes out. And finally, after all these years of running from it, he lets it. In the harsh Louisiana sun, Officer Blake Simmons faces the cameras, no longer hiding behind his badge or his lies. The truth, like the light streaming down, illuminates everything, painful, purifying, and ultimately transformative. Share this moment of accountability with #Truth Reveal, because sometimes the biggest step toward justice is admitting our own role in injustice. Officer Blake Simmons stares at his reflection in the Baton Rouge Police Department's restroom mirror, adjusting his civilian clothes. His badge, once a shield of arrogance, now rests in evidence, another piece of the story that brought him here. The irony doesn't escape him. He's about to step into the same convenience store where it all began. The bell chimes as he enters, and the sound pierces him like an accusation. Danica Morgan stands at the podium, her Navy SEAL posture unwavering as she addresses the crowd gathered for the Lorraine Fund launch. Officer Blake Simmons feels the weight of every eye that turns to watch him slip into the back row. The settlement wasn't about money, Morgan's voice carries through the store. It's about transformation. Officer Blake Simmons's throat tightens as he remembers his testimony, how his voice shook as he admitted the truth about that day, about all the days before it. The projector flickers with images, his body camera footage, the viral tweets, the hashtag #SimmonsFalls that had trended for days. Each frame chronicles his descent from power to humility. But it's the next image that makes his hands tremble. His badge, now mounted in a shadow box at the Police Academy's new implicit bias training center, a testament to what happens when authority loses its way. Type transform if you believe change starts with accountability, Morgan says to the cameras, live streaming the event. Officer Blake Simmons finds himself reaching for his phone, his thumb hovering over the keys. His mind drifts to his first day at the social justice course he now teaches. Standing before fellow officers, he'd held up that shadow box containing his badge. This isn't just metal, he'd told them. It's a mirror. Every day, we must ask ourselves, are we protecting power or people? The crowd applauds as Morgan announces the fund's first initiative, sponsoring implicit bias training for law enforcement across Louisiana. Officer Blake Simmons feels tears burning his eyes as she mentions his name, not in anger, but as an example of how truth can lead to transformation. Share this moment, Morgan tells her audience, because sometimes courage wears a different uniform. Officer Blake Simmons watches as #LorraineFund begins trending, replacing the hashtag that once marked his shame with one that marks his redemption. After the ceremony, he approaches the shadow box display. His badge catches the store's fluorescent light, no longer a symbol of oppression, but a reminder of the cost of authenticity. A young officer recruit stands beside him, studying the display. Was it worth it? The recruit asks. Losing everything? Officer Blake Simmons touches the glass gently. I didn't lose everything, he says. I found myself. The truth took everything I built, but it gave me something I never had. Peace. The convenience store's bell chimes again as he leaves, but this time it sounds different. Like a beginning, not an end. Outside, the Louisiana sun catches his face, and for the first time in months, Officer Blake Simmons doesn't turn away from its light. Drop 2 if you believe in second chances, the live stream caption reads as it ends, capturing his silhouette against the setting sun. Because sometimes the greatest power isn't in wearing a badge, it's in knowing when to lay it down.